Let's start by talking about the second part of your tutorial that I want you to practice at home, and that is using the pen tool. So you can see here I have my pen nibs showing at all times. This is something I usually do in my workspace. So if you come and click and hold the pen tool, there's a little tear off bar, and that lets you click and drag them out. This is usually an option for most things. So if you wanted your shape palette available, you can click and drag. The pen tool is a fundamental tool of Illustrator. This is a really important tool for you to work on. You'll find a lot of tutorials online, and it's important to practice this. So as you click the pen tool, what you're doing is you are building anchor points. Just like we saw anchor points in these shapes, anchor points are coming into your work here. So if you click and click again, you're actually seeing an anchor points build. You can see that my line has created a line as it comes. It's a little stair step, I can kind of tell. And what you'll want to do to make that a straight line is get in the habit of holding shift as you select your anchor points, as you click into your space, and you can see now it's a perfect straight line. So here's one line that I built. This is just a straight line. You can do this a lot of different ways. You can just click, 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 click around the screen. Another thing you can do instead of just clicking is click and drag. And this time I'm actually building a curved line. So every time I click an anchor point, instead of clicking once, I'm dragging my mouse out. And what I'm getting is a series of, it's a curvilinear shape.
Hollywood Undead is an American rap.
That was Siri. I don't know. She must have heard something that she liked. What you're seeing is a series of curvilinear shapes and anchor points that actually have direction handles associated with them. So clicking up here, you can see this is actually just a straight line anchor point. Down here, anytime you're clicking and dragging, you're actually building out anchor points that come with direction handles. The nice thing is that you can select to modify any of these curves. You can select the anchor point, you can drag it around, and it's going to modify the shape associated based off that. If you would like to, you can hold shift, and it's going to give you, it's going to kind of perfect your curve a little bit and create a little more pleasing curves, a little more that align to the grid, that kind of align to your path. So you're getting this nice blobby shape. Just like in the pencil tool, if we hit Command Y on our keyboard, we can see this is an open path. This is just a line. And so if we want to close any of our paths, we can click once and come over here to the last path, last anchor point. So now I have a closed path. If I'd like to add an anchor point, I can come over to my pen nib, hit add anchor point, and I can select click onto this path line, and I'm going to get some more points come up. So if I want to kind of perfect this, I can hold shift and play around. And I can extend the length of these direction handles. I can click and drag any of these anchor points to go where I'd rather that they are. And sometimes you can see that as you modify these, position of the anchor point and then the direction handles associated, you're altering the shape that you get. It's a good rule of thumb to try to have your direction handles be about the same length. So as this anchor point has these two direction handles, you can see that this direction handle is quite a bit longer than this handle. So to change that and make these about the same, I just have to select and drag out that path. You can see we've got kind of this wobbly shape. What I've asked you to do for step 2 is to spend some time playing around with this pen tool. So kind of create your own wobbly shape. And then it's nice to work on creating a letter form. So what you'll want to do, and I'll show you that coming up. What I've asked you to do is spend some time in this pen tool. And I'm going to show you a quick basic way to work that most designers do. So we start by sketching on paper, and then we scan our sketches in that we want to translate onto the computer. You can place that in this document, and then you can use the pen tool to trace over the top. This is the second part of your tutorial, is to go ahead and sketch a capital S, and this is going to give you a really good chance to practice those Bezier curves and to use the pen tool to vectorize that shape. So you can see as I am in Illustrator, I can hit File Place, and I have a sketch that I created. I drew this just using my marker, and if I click once, it's going to select it. It's a little large, so I can hold Shift and scale this down. I'm going to actually delete that, and I'm going to place this a different way. So File Place. I'm going to select the same file. I'm going to show you that you actually can just click and drag, and it'll place the file. So you can see, you can tell this is a sketch that I just created just now on some piece of paper by my desk. I'm using a simple black marker. The black marker is nice because you can see clearly what you're working on top of. I've just kind of sketched it in pencil really quickly, and then I've just taken a marker and gone over the top. Now, I do, when I sketch letter forms, I do think a little bit about thin areas and thicker areas to emphasize, and the terminals or the ends of the letter form would be a little thinner, and these thickness areas would be a little heavier right here. That's just a side tip. So this is going to show you a simple way to work, and this is what I'm asking you to do at home. So you can select this item, come up here, Object Lock Selection, and if you start to do this a lot, you can see that there's a shortcut right here. And now I can't select it. It's just going to be down on my page. I'm going to zoom in so I can see, have kind of this S in the top. And if you want, for a reference, you can actually click the Type tool and type an S over here. Come up here, change the size of that. Make sure it's selected. And I can kind of see, for reference, the way a typeface is done. So you can see this is live type, and I'm not seeing any anchor points on it. To see those anchor points, you can actually create outlines on this. So you can go to Type, Create Outlines. This is actually going to vectorize the typeface. So it's going to make it so it's not live type, you can't see, but it's letting me kind of have a nice reference point on how many anchor points we were talking about. I can see how these anchor points line up right here. So each pair is right on top of the other. So one's not randomly here. So we want to try to mirror that symmetry in our structure and the way that we're working. Let's go ahead and use our pen tool and start by clicking some anchor points. I'm going to first turn my pen tool to make sure I'm giving myself an outline. And I'm going to turn this outline a different color. I think it'll be a little helpful if you can see it better with a different color. So working over here, now I'm going to actually be drawing a blue line. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to, as I click and drag, I'm going to create this curve. I'm going to come about here, click and drag. And we're kind of awkwardly finding this structure that I've drawn with the marker. And at this point, I always like to just go ahead and fill it in and keep clicking around and come back to fine tune any of these points. So we're going to come on to the other side. And you can see I've kind of placed this anchor point, these two, in that same symmetry. My next point I gave myself was over here. I'm going to click and drag. And right here. Right here. And then let's go ahead and close our path. So this looks like a little bit of a mess. And that's okay at this stage. So what we want to do is spend a little time, put some music on, and you want to clean this up a little bit. So let's double check our reference point. So we have on the Myriad Pro S, there's actually 2 right here and 2 right here and 1 about as the curve comes up. So I think I may want to add some anchor points. I'm going to kind of drag this line. I'm using my white arrow to really modify this at this point. I'm going to take my add anchor point, give myself an extra couple points right here. These look good. 2, 2, 2, 2. Let's use this white arrow and try to clean these up a little bit. This is the point that I really zoom in and I start to work really closely. So one problem that I'm seeing is that this direction handle is here, points this way, and this one goes this way. Let's try to kind of clean those up. So as I just start manipulating these handles, you can see they start to go about the same point. And I think it's actually, there we go, giving me, and this will take you a bit of time, and you can see about the same length. Let's kind of line those up a little better. Okay, let's come over here to this point, and let's kind of drag this handle to better match that line. And let's kind of line those up a little more. So now these are a little closer. That's starting to look a little better. Coming over here, this seems a little unbalanced. This direction handle has to handle quite a bit of work of this curve, and this direction handle is not having to be extended as much. So just to clarify, this curve right here, this section, is actually created by this handle and this handle. And it's nice to kind of even them out a little bit. So as we'll make them share the work, the curve will actually smoothen out a little bit, and you'll see this start to clean up. So I assume there's something awkward in here as well. So let's kind of adjust this. This seems okay. And you'll want to kind of walk through and clean up all of this on your S. actually move these. I think the part I don't like is this path right in here. Bottom's looking pretty smooth. My curve is smooth, and that's something that we look for. And this part, it's not. And it could be just my awkward letter form, but I'm going to actually turn that back. And I'm going to turn it black. And that's looking pretty good. To unlock the sketch, I'm going to go to Object Unlock, and Illustrator unlocks anything that's locked. And I'm actually just going to delete the sketch out. And now what I'm left with is a vector letter S. Here is our much better comparison study of, this is using Myriad Pro, capital S. So you can see how smooth each of these curves are, and it's something to keep working in. So I would say this is not great, it's not perfect, but all it takes is a little time playing around and just keep fine tuning these curves, being able to kind of notice some awkward spots like this spot right here. For the sake of this video length, I'm going to go ahead and stop working on the S and take the time to mention that if you are looking for more Illustrator tutorials, you can always look at the Adobe website as well as lynda.com, and you may find some really great ones on Skillshare. Lynda.com is probably free through your public library, and I will double check with the Topeka Public Library to double check, but they are a robust library and I would assume that it's free. So if all you need to do is get a library card, you can go through the Topeka Public Library website and access the lynda.com through there. So work with your local librarian. You'll find a lot of good tutorials that if the pen tool is a little frustrating for you, all it takes is really a lot of time, but go ahead and take some time and do a little more tutorial work with the pen tool. So at this point, I'm going to actually transition you into the third part that I'm asking you to do in Illustrator, which is about typesetting.